It's focused on how large enterprises can start innovating like startups. So my name is Corey Easton. I'm one of the co-organizers. I'm the head of digital consulting for Climax Media. We call ourselves enterprise web architects, so we help large enterprises as well as funded startups innovate through connected web technology. Carlos is one of the co-organizers. Go ahead.
LeanTO expert at Telus, actually. And we've got another co-organizer around here too.
Michael, where are you? Okay, he's not here. Michael is also very integral to this team. So just quick thanks to Climax for hosting, Steam Whistle for providing us beer, Panago for pizza, and Shawn and Carlos. So I'll let you take it away.
I just wanted to thank Shawn for coming down and taking.
Thanks for the big clicker.
Yeah.
The biggest PowerPoint clicker I've ever seen. So we'll make the best use of it I can.
I'll give you a quick background on Shawn. So Shawn Mandel is Mr. Mandel is the VP of Telus Digital, and he's the owner of different consumer and business web properties and responsible for that within the organization. And he's got a very long history of implementing some really cool things in the telecom industry. For those of you that don't know, Shawn actually worked at Rogers for 6 years and worked on some really cool things. Anybody ever hear of Pound Taxi?
The thing that you pay too much for when you can get that free app on your phone.
But no, more seriously, even from a Telus perspective, over the last 6 years, Shawn's launched the HSBA network, which is huge, and as well as the LTE network, so all the networks that you guys are using on your phone. More recently, over the last 2 years, he's adopted the web channel team and really started to transform how we look at building out digital technology throughout the organization and how that impacts customers' experience as well. So I just wanted to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy
Thank you, sir.
schedule. And just so everybody knows the format, we're going to do 10 minutes,
Maybe longer.
maybe longer.
I've done this in an hour and a half, 25 minutes. And
We're really pushing him here.
I'll do like a Pechacucha style, see how fast we can get through it.
And then we'll do 10 minutes of we'll ask him kind of a fireside chat, a couple of questions, and then we're going to open it up and do 10 minutes of Q&A from the crowd as well. So please participate. And again, thank you very much for coming tonight. That's great.
So happy to be here, guys. And who in the room, company size, who works in a company that has 10,000 or more people? 20. 30. All right, I think I know where this goes. So, as Carlos mentioned, my background is product development. I've been doing product development about 14, 15 years. And I can categorically say that after adopting some of the methodologies and practices that we're using, especially about the rituals we've established, I can painfully say that everything I've done historically was probably not done the right way. And I hope to share some of those details with you. This presentation is called Lessons from the Trenches because every time I hear people talking about their startup success stories or what's going on in a large enterprise, everybody always tells me this fancy, amazing story about this great stuff that happened. I like to talk about the gory details, the painful parts, the reality of actually what's going on under the hood. And how difficult it is to drive these changes. And as you go through the material and in the slides, there's actually no words, it's all pictures. What you'll quickly notice is there's probably a lesson to be learned on every page. There's no wrap up and summary at the end. But if you watch closely and listen to the words, you'll realize that there's 20 or 30 lessons embedded within this that are applicable to anybody, whether you're an entrepreneur running kind of agile or lean or those types of practices in a large enterprise or aspire to be, or even just a scrappy startup, trying to make your first kind of big win. So we usually start with this slide because I think this is one of the big mistakes that people can make. You might be passionate about change, you might be trying to make things different, and you can see the light, but don't assume everybody else is. We've sat back a year later and asked ourselves very simple questions, and one of the simple questions I think we forgot to ask a lot of people was this one. Do you have a desire to change? Do you actually want to change? And what does that mean? And the lesson here is don't forget to ask that question. And ask that question in as many different ways as possible, and ask it as quickly as possible, because it can save you lots of heartache and lots of challenges down the road. So if you get the buy-in on this, typically the next question we ask is this. And the value of, I think, what we're trying to do every day, and I don't even think you get there. There is no destination, right? There is no thing as perfection in this process. There is no thing as ultimate customer value is zero waste. So it's a journey, it's a marathon. And I think one of the things everybody's got to realize is a lot of large organizations strive to put a lot of certainty up front within their processes. A lot of risk, a lot of management, a lot of controls, a lot of planning. And typically the outcome is never what you originally planned it to be. So what if you surrounded yourselves with a process that was very structured and rigored, but created ambiguity? And there is no straight line to your destination, and your destination is a set of pivots along the way, and you might realize halfway there you don't need to go any further. So what would you do if you could not fail? And that's a question that makes people very uncomfortable. And then what we say is if you're good with the first one, you're good with the second one, then there you go then. Because there's your silver platter, because there's no good time to change. The longer it takes, the longer you wait, the bigger the pile is, and you need a bigger shovel. And I'm not going to swear today. I promised I wouldn't swear today. I swear a lot. But the point is, that is your opportunity. You don't need to be empowered to change. You don't need to be empowered to improve. That's just part of what you should do. So if you're waiting for someone to give you permission, that's kind of the wrong attitude to take. So we always believe that everybody always has the silver platter and it's available to you at any time. The question is, what do you do with it? So we have some key messages that come across and come out of a lot of the work we've done, and one of them is this: we're a very functional organization. A lot of these large organizations you guys work in are very functional, and this isn't about some massive reorganization or some massive org change. This is about this philosophy. We believe you can do a lot despite your org structure. It just depends if you really want to. And this is one of my favorite quotes. If anybody knows Tom Robbins, he was an author. And this is one of my faves, because I believe in everything and nothing is safe. And remember back, step back into those questions and think about that audience in terms of, that desire to change, because this is probably, there's a lot of quotes in this deck. That's probably one of my favorites.
That's great.
This is also fantastic. I love acting like everything's on fire. I was hanging Google Images for hours trying to find the best picture of fire. I spent a lot of wasted time surfing Google Images looking for great pictures. But the message here is, if anybody knows who Nasty Gal is, Sophia Amoroso, she runs the vintage clothing shop out of San Francisco. I was down at South by and had a chance to hear her speak for about 10 minutes. I thought I was in the wrong place. And then about the last 15 minutes of her presentation, I was just fascinated by the sound bites she was dropping about culture, about people, and about hiring the right people. And one of the things that she mentioned, I don't know if a lot of people picked it up, and they asked, what keeps you going? You're 29 years old, you started on MySpace, all of a sudden you're running a $300 million company, you've got 300 people, you're gloriously famous and you're fantastic. And they asked her, so what keeps you going? And this was the answer she gave them, constantly act like everything's on fire. No, there's no such thing as complacency. And a lot of large companies in traditional industries can get very comfortable. And anything that we know about what's happening in the world around us, it's the large industries and large enterprises that are in trouble. And it's those non-traditional competitors that are out to get us. So this notion of acting like everything is on fire is a very powerful thing, and kind of what keeps me driven. And we talk a lot about how, right? There's a lot about the why and the what, but not enough about the how. And the how for us is, and why we like these principles and methodologies and why we believe they're very relevant to our environment, is we're a customers first organization. There is no doubt within our organization that if you ask 40,000 team members what our #1 priority is, they will say it's putting the customer first. The question is, how do you do that? How do you put the customer in the middle of your processes? How do you co-create with your customers? A lot of large industries, a lot of large companies do a lot of things under the guise of secrecy. We'll do this big reveal when we're done, and the last thing you do is engage your customers in that process. So we believe the how is about the customer, and the how is about how do you put the customer in the middle of everything that you do. Doesn't matter if you're a startup, doesn't matter if you have 300,000 people in your organization, this is the sauce. So that's actually us talking to a human and showing them designs. It's fascinating stuff when you talk to people and you hear what they have to say. Down in the bottom corner is another usability session. We've done 250 usability sessions in 70 weeks with frontline team members who talk to our customers in the store, in the contact center. We've met with real customers of every flavor, every size, every shape, every color. And we've done a lot of work in the last little while, and we're not even close. I would say we've kind of only just begun. And this is our story. I think that's a good lead-in to kind of get your understanding where we're going. And this is our story. Have anybody ever seen this video? Yeah. Hands. Gives me an idea. I guess I should explain. Derek Sivers, TED Talk, How to Start a Movement. It's about 3.5 minutes. And the story's funny because this guy's dancing on the grassy knoll at a concert. dancing like a lunatic, right? Everybody's laughing at him. Someone's actually videotaping the entire thing. You know, after about 30 seconds, somebody joins. And next thing you know, 3 minutes later, there's 400 people dancing like crazy lunatics. And I think there's something about driving that movement inside of a large company where this phenomenon happens, right? And Derek Stivers does a fantastic job in the video talking about those early adopters and how people kind of cross the chasm to go dance with this guy. But the moral of the story is, it wasn't this guy, the lone nut, it was the person who followed him that took the bigger risk. This person treated that person like an equal, and they were in it together. And I encourage you to watch it, because I think that as you embrace these things in large companies, this video pretty much says it all. And then it's all about the journey. And we did not get high in the desert and drive around like as I expected. The point is, there actually is no destination, especially in digital. So when you think about digital, I don't think we'll ever get there. I don't even want to get there. I'm having too much fun on the ride. So the point here is, don't miss out. Pay attention, because you'll learn a lot of things on the journey, and I would argue there really is no destination. And if you think about these methodologies and practices and rituals that we're applying within our organization, there is no such thing as perfection. You chase perfection. That's the goal. That's the place to go. When I first took over this gig, and I worked on lots of big billion-dollar massive networks, thousands and thousands of team members, so I have lots of experience with large teams, so I understand. And I would say that this is probably another one of my favorite quotes, because you can't make everybody happy. If you're aspiring to make everybody happy and think you won't piss someone off along the way, you're going to fail. So that's one thing that you have to get pretty clear as you embark upon these initiatives within your organizations, that there is no success in making 100% of people happy. Those two things just actually don't work together. We went on a journey. I'm a big karma guy. I like making friends. I've made a lot of friends over the years, and what I realized as I took over this opportunity, that I had a lot of friends, and they were doing a lot of things. So I tried to find a funny picture of a buffet, and it's hilarious, like pinatas and like some Swedish guy and all kinds of stuff on the table. But the point was, when I first took over this opportunity, I didn't know what the answer was. So we were talking to everybody, large, small, months. I was on this journey of discovery, wandering through a desert, if you want to use that analogy. That's the first time I've used that one. And the point was, I met a guy one time who was running an incubator for a newspaper. And as you know, newspapers in this day and age are going which way? Exactly. So he was trying to incubate and innovate for a newspaper. He's like, have you read this book? And there's many different variations of this on analytics and enterprise and a bunch of stuff. But Eric Ries became famous by writing a book about common sense. And that's why I love these things. I've read it about 5 or 6 times, and we've done a hybrid of this model. But this is essentially that. The day I read that book and the day that was told me, like a light bulb went off in my head. And I said, we're going to run a startup with inside Telus.
Wow.
And so this is that story. We talked about running 2 cities, building a new town. In the digital space in 2014, 2012 it was. You're trying to find a path to the future. So this wasn't about doing anything for the next 3 to 6 months. This was about 10 years. So essentially, in a nutshell, we had to declare bankruptcy on the towns and start a new colony. And that new colony is quite an interesting story, because it started with an experiment. And it started was, can we run a startup inside of a large enterprise in a 40 by 40 training room with 20 people who are completely empowered, given all the tools to be successful, surrounded by a process that will create ambiguity? Maybe they'll arrive at an outcome. And if it doesn't work, the world didn't come to an end. We didn't jeopardize our core business. And, there was no plan B. There was no backup plan. We were so confident in this method of working and the way this would work that I didn't actually think it would fail. Anybody ever seen the Simpsons episode? Hands. Okay, good. So more people have seen this than the Derek Stivers video. This is a famous one, right? So Homer had a really good idea. That was Homer's MVP, right? He put the sketch on paper. It was fantastic. And if you understood what happened and what was done as an output of this process, it was the most long, arduous thing you've ever seen. Essentially, the company went bankrupt. It's a long story. So we liked this because Homer was on the right path. And the unfortunate part is the delivery engine behind Homer's idea wasn't the best engine, and it took a long time to fail. And failure is a good thing. We believe in failure. We actually celebrate failure. And celebrating failure is important when you fail fast. Don't take 12 months to fail and then think you're going to celebrate. You can fail in 4 or 5 days, you're doing well, celebrate those failures. That's what's going to make you better. we discard far more than we ever take to market. More stuff's in the garbage than ever sees the light of day. And if you have the right process surrounding you, you can make that happen. We love this slide. We had something similar, but I stole Spotify. It was leaked on Twitter at some event. And the message here is make more skateboards and test that skateboard. Maybe make a handle. Maybe it'll be a bike, and you'll be done. Because if we can launch something or take something to market that solves 80% of the problem with 40% of the capability, we can stop. But don't go down the path of building this or even that line. You know, make more skateboards and go from there. But it sounds a lot easier than it is because you got to create the space to continue iterating on those MVPs. Next thing you're chasing the next thing, and you're sitting on a pile of MVPs that need another iteration on top of them. So you have to figure out how to structure your sprint teams and how to set up your process so that doesn't happen. So this is our story, right? We put one team together to operate like a startup. And you know, how are we going to redesign the experience for our customers, but at the same time change our process, and at the same time change our culture? So we made it even worse on ourselves because we said we're going to go down this journey and down this path, and we're not just going to deliver great output. We're going to create a sustainable process and evolve our culture at the exact same time. Good luck. You know, still war wounds from this day. Wouldn't change a thing. Very difficult, right? It's not just about that initiative or that journey. It's what you can do with that opportunity. In large companies, as you guys know, large initiatives or high priority initiatives are a massive vehicle for change. What are you going to do with that opportunity? You have your silver platter. And the cool part was we did it all in public. So stood up a team in a room, and 80 days later we said, you're going live. I don't care what you have. I don't care where you are. We're going live, and we're going to go in front of the public, and we're going to build with customers because it's the right thing to do. So in about 80 days, I actually think it was less. I keep counting the number wrong. It might have been 70 something. From scratch, we stood up the technology, the environment, the analytics, the team, the process, the culture, the designs, you name it, and launched in a beta mode and went live. And we've been building technically in public ever since because these things live, they're never done. And this is why we did it. You know, I don't need to read the words. This is probably the only slide with words in this deck. The point is how can you build something in this day and age under the guise of secrecy without involving your customers? What will the other guys think they said? What will the competition think? It really didn't matter. Because our sauce was in processing the culture. It wasn't in the design. It wasn't in we had the best developer. It wasn't in anything else. And that was the opportunity we took advantage of. You know, we decided to get together and hang out, you know, co-locate, co-create. We talked about the customer engagement side before. And we did this because this is the slide where I tell you a bunch of things you already know. Right, so you think about digital and the impact it's having. I heard digital and mobile is kind of important. You know, considering we're a mobile provider and we also do digital, you think it would be a great opportunity. So when you think about some of these stats, they're crazy, right? And there's so many more. You know, the bottom left one gets it for me, the bottom right one gets it for me. Traditional retailers aren't on that list, right? They're all online. You think about what Walmart's doing with Walmart Labs and where Amazon is in comparison to Walmart. Walmart set up labs, the exact same thing, in order to innovate so that they could catch up with that wave. And it's about the environment, right? So this was a space we almost rented because we thought we couldn't do it inside the organization. So this is Richmond and Spadina. It's on top of a club. It smelled like booze. It was fantastic. Right? There's your lease agreement, ready to go. And we just said, you know what? This wasn't the right thing to do. So we got that nice training room. We messed it up. It's not like a frat house. It was fantastic. And we hung out there for about 10 months. And we tried to run this experiment. Could we run a startup inside of a large company? Could we surround them with the right tools and environment to be successful, and then scale from there once we proved out our hypothesis that startups can succeed within a large enterprise? And then all of a sudden it became bigger and we all became this kind of lab, the lab word kind of dropped off and it just became who we were. We don't use the words agile or lean anymore. We do a lot of training and we do a lot of work spreading the gospel within the organization. It just became who we are. We're not trying to do something, right? We're trying to be something. And there's a huge difference between doing something and being something. But it was painful. Right? So this is the point where you step back and realize that it doesn't always go the way you think it will. And we made so many mistakes I could spend an hour talking about it. But we failed fast, we celebrated those failures, and we moved forward. And I did a retrospective with 150 people a couple of weeks ago. And it was the most amazing experience you've ever seen. And we all just talked about what we did wrong, what we learned from it, or whatever wrong really means. and what we're going to do going forwards. So the message here is celebrate failure, but don't take a year to fail. Fail fast. And it wasn't easy. I tried to find a picture of a guy under the hood. He's digging a whole bunch of stuff about it, because you might see a lot of stuff on our experience and what we've done in digital, and there's so much more to come, especially with our apps and what we're doing on the online piece. We haven't even started yet. But a lot of what we've done was under the hood. As you can tell, in large enterprise, how are your IT systems? How is your environment? How flexible it is to these ways of working? So there's actually more was done underneath the hood than you can actually see in the experience itself. And our time to market is 15x faster, capital efficiency is like 25x faster. If I told you how much cheaper our testing costs were, you'd think I'm crazy. Like, it's just, you know, it works. It really does. But it takes certain ingredients in which to make it successful. And we share everything. This is in the public domain. I don't care. It's funny, the traffic from our traditional competitors hitting our websites and our blogs since we did this has been on a nice steady rise. It's funny to watch. But they really couldn't do anything about it because it wasn't about the experience. It was about the culture and the process. And I would say a lot about the culture within our organization, even though we're large, is we're all galvanized around one thing, the customer. Makes perfect sense. Kind of obvious. So we blog about everything. It's available. Well, how's it around? I got a list of like 30, 40 blog posts we want to continue putting out. And we believe digital is about sharing, and we believe that's what this is all about. So everybody asks, what's the sauce? I had a slide that was sitting here about like all these fancy methodologies and all this stuff. And really the sauce is apply startup principles, validate your ideas, experiment with your customers, don't be afraid. You know, use certain agile methodologies, whatever flavor works in your environment, to iterate quickly, make more skateboards, a lot of the lessons and stuff that we talked about before. And what you'll start to realize, a lot of this stuff comes down to pretty much one simple thing. And that one simple thing is just good leadership, right? And good relationships. And, you know, making sure that if you're going to embrace this as an organization within your company, do you have the right leaders? Do you have the right support? And typically, if you have the right leaders, all the rest is details as far as I'm concerned. So our message is, from a digital perspective, I think my daughter drew this, the traditional model no longer exists. You know, digital is fantastic at blowing up silos. And, you know, we talk about digital and what digital can do within an organization. Right? We typically talk about it in the context of two-sided business models, how I can monetize my assets, the fact that digital is an opportunity for us to do different things for our customers. The one thing that I don't talk enough about is how disruptive digital can be to the way of working and breaking down those barriers within your organization. And we built a bus, you know, and if you want to jump on, giddy up. And I asked some of my team members to put together a word cloud, especially the developers. You know, we're a very amazing shop for a developer to want to hang out. When you look at the variety of the tools, the technology, the opportunities, what we're building, right? And there's not many large places in Canada where you get that opportunity, right? You know, we always talk about Facebook and Amazon and, you know, what's happening in Canada. You know, if you want to step back and look at what's happening in Canada, where people are creating things, it's only happening in a very few small places. At scale, that's very exciting, and we believe we've created something very special, being at the epicenter of mobile and digital, which we think is kind of a big deal. So, you know, people like foosball, supposedly. Technology, awesome. Autonomy, new. You know, and I really like this because I think it does a good job at echoing the sentiment of the culture and the environment we've created as an outcome of what we've done. And that's all I got. Thanks. 13 minutes, I know.
Wow, 3.
That's it. No, 13 minutes. Oh,
Yeah.
That's a new record. I can go for a while on that, but thank you.
Before we go to questions, we got a book giveaway from our sponsors of the Enterprise book. I just tweeted the winner.